Okay. If you see this word DevOps, this is basically, you see in the word DevOps itself, there are two things. One is dev, one is ops. This is development and this is operations. So what this model speaks is, to understand this model, yes, we need to go a little bit, back. It's been 4 to 5 years now when you see that people started using DevOps, and now it is coming to a kind of a maturity that you go even to a very, very small kind of a company, meaning a kind of a startup kind of company also, they are following the DevOps practices. Of course, as you go ahead and you see the industry big players in that, naturally they all are already following the. But the whole idea why they came with this concept of DevOps is, this model, the ultimate endpoint, or not endpoint, ultimate thing what they want to get this with this model is, they want to bring in practices where dev and ops teams will start working as one team. This is what is the, for long time, development teams and the operation teams were working in silo. Okay, so they want to bring in a model which will be a kind of call it as an enabler, or a kind of a set of uh, or a kind of a practice which, when done, these two teams can start working as one team. That is the intention. Now I'll go to my previous statement where I said for a long time these two teams were working as in silos. Now what do I mean by that? See, when I say development team, I mean, people who are working in the roles of as a developer, tester, everyone comes under this. What is the primary job of a development team in a company? See, the primary job is they will write the code for your applications, right? Today, if you want to set up a, let's say, some e-commerce kind of a site or a portal, right? So you hire in developers, and what is that they'll do? They'll write the code to set up that portal. Irrespective of which kind of industry you are in and what kind of application you are building, the job of a developer is to write the code to build the application. And it's not that one person will sit and he'll write the code, right? You'll have a team who will sit and write the code. So what they do is they put their code in some location so that all your team members can collaborate and contribute to this code. So what is the second thing they do broadly, you know, uh, is that they'll put this code on something called version control uh, software, or for now, let's say just version control. What I mean by version controlling is that, excuse me, is that you'll put it at some location where multiple people can work on it. And if you want, you can go back to previous day code how it is and all that. Broadly, I'm just putting it as version control, meaning that you put it at some location where everybody can contribute to that. Third thing is, you will have your testing teams who will test your code, right? So you build your code. Okay, now this code, okay, whatever you have built, you have to put it on a server. Okay, this application, you you put your code here, all right, so your end users can start accessing your application. But it doesn't go like that. So what they do, once they build your code, they'll put it in another, they put it on a server. It's basically called as a different environments, we call it. They put it here and have your testing team thoroughly test it. Once your testing team says that everything is fine, then they'll put it on your server where external users can access it. And generally, these environments, we call them as the production kind of environments, meaning that this is the systems where our main customers are using it. And we give different names for, before it goes to the production, we give it different names like staging, dev, and other thing we give a name. The whole idea is that before it actually goes here, you do thorough testing. That is what your, QA, QC, when I say tester, I mean your QA guys, QC, and everyone, right? These guys does it. And finally, what is that you need is that you need your code to be copied to some server where users can access it, right? This is called deploy. Deploy means copying your code to a server where your end users can access it. So you take any kind of a development process, it is all about this four. Write it, test it, and deploy it. Nothing else. Write it, test it, deploy it. Right? Now, if for a moment, if I take a perspective of operation guys, what is the job of these guys? When I say operations, I mean people who are working as sysadmins, okay, network admins, security guys, DBAs, etc. All these guys comes under operations team. The job of these guys is to maintain the infrastructure required to run this application. Whatever infrastructure is required to run your application, that infrastructure is created and managed by this operations guy. Now, when I use word infrastructure, what do I mean? I mean this application has to run on the server. So, installing OS on the server and and installing additional softwares which your application, right, and creating a network of all these systems, and later making sure that when end users hit your application, a proper security practices you follow it, right? All these things. The problem is that for a long time, the kind of mindset operation guys have, even I, before coming on to DevOps for a very long time, I was into this kind of a job where you are, the kind of thing we have is, for instance, let's say I am a sysadmin. The way I used to do things is somebody asked me, hey, a developer asked me, hey, I need a server. Then, okay, I say, okay, I need a machine. I speak to somebody, I put a machine, then I'll install OS. Then, whatever this development team guys needs, whatever software they need, I used to log in, I used to install that and all that. Right? And all these profiles, DBS and everyone, the job is that, we we do things basically, kind of an approach where what we follow is we log in and we do all the steps, right? The problem here is the developer always keeps talking about applications, and these operation guys always keeps talking about infrastructure. Like, I need to buy a new server, I need to do the installation of this, I need to create a user, I need to do some active directory stuff, I need to create a database, all these things. These guys, the way they think, developers of writing code for everything, their mindset and the mindset of operation people is completely different. Now, let's say if I were to talk to a developer and he tells me, I have written a code, I have put it in a version control and all that, I probably will not even understand what he's saying. And if I start speaking, telling that today I'm going to create, a server, I'm going to do installation, I'm going to do create user and all that, probably, developers doesn't understand it. So a lot of places, what used to happen is only during this final phase, where you need to deploy your application to production. This is the time actual conversation between developers and operations guy used to happen a lot of, because that is the critical moment. Rather, the discussion should have happened right here at the start of the project, that guys, this is how we'll manage it, this is how we'll do it, and the common ground under which the whole project will run. But that never happened, though it looks very idealistic and this looks very kind of a pragmatic thing to do, but that never used to happen. Reason is not that that intention was not there, intention was there, but just the mindset of these two teams was so different that any conversation you have, it is almost like, okay, you do this, you do this, nothing more than how you are doing it. There was never a point when both were trying to do things in a similar fashion, because the kind of job was also different, right? Now what I mean by this is, see, today, let's say, Shiva is there. Okay, for a moment, assume that I am his manager. A development team guys ask me that they need a database server. Okay, I go to Shiva and say, hey Shiva, can you please set up a database server? You know, our development team needs it. Then Shiva says, all right, fine. Can you please talk to a Unix admin and give me a system with OS installed? Okay, I speak to a Unix admin. He'll give me a system and OS is there. Okay, OS is it could be any OS, Windows, Linux, anything. Now I tell Shiva, hey Shiva, can you install your whole database stuff? So out of based on the maturity of the company, what you do is you see a very very neat documentation of how you should set up your database. So Shiva, you know, logs into the system and sets up the whole database. Required steps, he does it, and the database is ready. He tells me, Ravi, it is done. Okay, I give it to the developers. Their application need a database, so that is ready. So this is where they'll start storing their stuff. Okay. After a week, I get one more requirement from the team saying that we need one more database server. And that day, uh, I speak to, let's say, Akut, and he's also in my DB team. I ask him, can you please set up a database for me? He says, all right, let me do it. Again, I find a system for him. Okay. I again OS is there, and he also sets up a database for me, right? I'm taking a best example where I am telling that company is having a very, very neatly defined document which need to be followed to set up a database. But still, both of them, let's say for a moment, both of them follows the same document. Same document they have followed to set up the database. Still, I cannot vouch that these two systems are 100% identical. Okay. The reason is, when you are trying to do things, when there is a lot of human intervention there is no guarantee that two people will do it exactly same, even if you give the same document. Probability is maybe, but there is no 100% guarantee. Then what happens? I give a database to this created by Shiva here, and the database for this application which they are testing here, whatever Akud has created, give a database for them, this one. When they do the testing here, their application looks great, working great. When they put it here, they suddenly sees that there is some problem in the database. Things are not getting updated. And this is what for a long time you used to see here. Oh, I tested it there, it was working fine, but when I put it here, it is not working. What could be the reason? The reason could be the drift that is there between these two systems. The reason is there is something configured here which made this application work. Something got missed here. Something got missed here, which is making the application fail. And this is the major reason for having such a big support teams for a long time, right? Because you keep on getting these errors. Then again, somebody has to log in, figure out, troubleshoot, and this. I have taken one example, but across the board, if you see the whole range of application that a company runs, it could run into some 100 kind of things like this. So what happens now in a DevOps kind of a model is, okay, I'm taking from an operational background what happens to the DevOps in a DevOps stuff, right? What they say is, in a DevOps world model, even operation guys are also expected to do things with a developer mindset. Meaning that as I want these two teams to work as one team, okay, for a moment, what I'm telling to operation guys, the way you guys are doing your job till now, of going doing things step by step and following your practices, all that is great. But from today, I want you to do the same things what you are doing previously. Things what you are doing is great, but the way you are doing is, I want you to do those things with a developer mindset. What is a developer mindset? Instead of doing things manually and other things, write a code for it. Right? So in DevOps, what happens is, even the operational things, whatever you do, the expectation is you write a code for it. Now, how to write a code is what we'll discuss now. It is very, very simple. But the idea now is, this document, rather than giving this document to these two guys and asking them to create a database, these instructions, I'll write a code for it. To make it simple, let's say I'll take a file, one file, I open it, all these instructions, I'll put it here. And I tell Shiva, going forward, anytime you want to set up a database server, all you need to do is run this file, right? So the end thing about after running this whole file is that DB is ready, database is ready. When Akud runs it, again I'll have tell him all that you need to do is just run this file. Now can I watch that these two will be same? I can. The reason is the approach now is changed. We have written a code for this whole installation. Now it doesn't matter who runs the code, the final objective will be the same. Right? This way, you can this way we can remove off all those drifts. So the very first change that will happen is that you will start writing, you know, uh, guys, am I audible, right? I am, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
okay. No, suddenly my marker, weirdly. Anyways, so, okay, now it is working. So the first thing that will happen is you will write code for everything. Okay. Second thing is, once you write a code, I cannot give it to Shiva and tell, oh, okay, use this, right? So what I'll do, again, my code here, it is not that one DevOps guy will sit and write it, right? It is again a team who will sit and do it. So I'll follow the same practice what developers are doing, where I'll put it in a version control kind of place. I'll have testers test it. The way testers were doing testing of application, now they'll test it for my code. This code is what in a DevOps world is called IAC, infrastructure as code. The other two, you see now what I did, I whatever developers are doing, I'm telling them whatever you're doing is great. You do your job, just do it the way you're doing it. But I am bringing a change in the mindset of operations guys, saying that don't do things manually, do it with a developer mindset. And what is the end result? They'll start writing the code for all their job. They will follow the same kind of practices what developers follow for their application, right? This is the change that will happen from the operations side. So in Shiva now, when he's working as a DBA and tomorrow he gets into the DevOps, he can still leverage his DBA knowledge, because the kind of thing that they will ask him is all his database stuff. He'll try to automate that, or try to create a code for them, or try to bring in these kind of good practices into the way he's doing it. What is the change that will happen from the development side? So who all are working as a QA developer and all that, the moment you embrace this DevOps model, what is the change that will happen is, whatever you are doing till now, everything is fine, no change here. This deployment, where I said you copy your code to the server where people will start accessing the applications, which I call it as a deploy. Deploy is nothing but copying it to server, right? This one, what they prescribed is bring in a something called as CI/CD. CI and CD, actually not oblique, it should probably be comma. CI/CD is called as continuous integration. CD is called continuous development. Now, what is the meaning of that is whenever any developer does a change, okay, you write a code, okay, before you actually copy it into the server, you will do some process called as build process. Build means you will create an executable form. So what they are telling is this whole steps of building the code and copying it to your server make it continuous. What is the meaning of continuous is the moment somebody does a change in the code, these two things should automatically happen and it should flow and it should just happen. For a long time, this was a kind of a for a long time this was kind of a manual job where they used to build it and they used to deploy it. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm finding a little bit problem with my system. I think let me continue. Okay, so these things they want to make it continuous. Continuous means you just click it, automatically these things will happen. This build and deploy should happen. So what were happening manually, that also we automated. It means imagine if Amazon site is there. Today, a new vendor comes to Amazon and he says that I want to sell, let's say that vendor sells some, let's say, headsets. He says that, I want to sell my things on the site. And if Amazon tells them, oh, you know what, weekly only once we'll update our application. So your application, you will start seeing it in our site from next Friday. So it means for a week time, it is like nothing happens. If any new vendor comes, he has to wait for a week before his things gets published on the site, right? That way, if they do business, then in a whole year, probably 4 times a week into 12 months, only 48 times they'll be able to update their application, which is not great. But if you bring in the CI/CD kind of stuff, and if it gets matured and stable, you do any update in your code, it will automatically take all the necessary steps to deploy it. And it could be that in a minute time, every minute any new changes is done, you will see that it's reflected on your application. So from the development side, all that needs to be done is get into this CI/CD. At an implementation level, DevOps is nothing but these two guys. At an implementation level, DevOps means only two things. You will write code for your infrastructure, and for your applications, you will configure continuous integration and continuous development. You have nothing to do with your application. Okay. The meaning of that is you don't need any programmer kind of a knowledge or a development knowledge. Those is not required because you will not be part of it. Your job is to do these two things. So even now, the way the industry is coming is in every company you will see only two kind of people. One is the developer, one is the DevOps guy. So the job of a developer is primarily to build the application. Rest all things is taken care by these DevOps guys, and that's precisely the reason why nowadays you open any kind of a job, they'll ask you at least one line DevOps, your ability to use the DevOps tools, right? Because that has almost become like part of every job profile now. Right? So that is basically what DevOps is, and the way we actually do it is this. You have to write code for your infrastructure, right? So that code you will in the part of course, this I am referring to, this IAC, you will try to learn how to code for your infrastructure using two tools called Ansible. They just bear me for today. I'm little surprised. My system, you know, is little slow today, and this marker also is giving a little bit problem. But anyways, let me continue the flow. So these two tools you will learn, you know, for infrastructure as code. And these two tools, you don't need any knowledge, nor you will do anything like your general programming languages like your Java or other things. This is a different style. This is are called as declarative languages, wherein all you need to do is you need to tell to this tool what is that you want. How to do that, those tools will take care. Very, very simple. Anybody can learn. Very, very simple. You don't need any programming knowledge or anything. To cover this concept of CI/CD, we will do we with two tools. One is Jenkins, and the other one is we use AWS DevOps tools also to show you how to do this CI/CD. These tools, whatever you learn as part of DevOps, you can do it if your company has their own data center. What I mean by data center is company has their own place where they have put their servers, then that is called as a data center. Your company can might be operating in this kind of a place, or your company might be completely working on in a cloud. The major providers are cloud or your AWS, Azure, GCP. So what we do is to make you feel comfortable with working on cloud, we do a very decent kind of study on AWS, where almost you learn whatever is required, almost everything we have covered it in the syllabus. And the most cutting thing that is happening in the industry now is that there is a concept called containers, which is a wide level of adoption is happening for this technology. To to cover this, we'll be doing two topics. One is Docker and Kubernetes. One requirement for the whole course is that not a requirement as such, but if at all anything need to be known little bit to do these whole tools is little bit working knowledge on Linux. That is all the requirement, nothing else. Even if you come with a very, very decent kind of a development experience or an operational experience also, this course when you start it, you will have to start it right from zero because it's a completely different stuff. Okay. So it doesn't matter whether you are beginning it now or you are a very seasoned professional learning DevOps. In both the cases, it is like a new kind of thing only. Only thing is if you are in industry from long time, you can leverage that experience, in terms of doing a kind of a deep dive into these tools. Otherwise, just from a learning angle, if you see, it is a new for everyone only. So point I'm trying to say is even if you are a very, very new and changing your job profile, it's okay. It's fine. There is you don't need any knowledge other than little bit of Linux command. So the very first week, what we'll do as a part of the course is spend time on this. And after that, we'll get into these tools. The cloud that we learn is AWS, containers, this is for CI/CD, this is this. And of course, you can see the whole syllabus, right? So this is how we structure the course, and this is what whole DevOps thing is about. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask me, guys. I'm audible on, right? Hello.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes,
Okay.
Hi, I have a quick
Sorry,
question.
little weird. My system is behaving. Yeah,
Hi,
yeah, yeah.
I have a quick question. So you said you're going to teach everything like Jenkins, Ansible, Terraform, everything. So you teach all this with the AWS in the mind,
Yeah.
or all those topics are irrespective of the cloud? Because I come from Azure background, not the AWS.
Irrespect two things. If you see that the kind of choice that we have made, one is I said AWS DevOps, where the idea is if you have to do your CI/CD, how will you do it in AWS? If I have to equate this, this is nothing but your Azure DevOps. Okay? That is AWS specific, but not that everybody will have to work on AWS, right? Even on-prem also you have to work. So we take Jenkins. Now that Jenkins doesn't matter whether you are using it on your Azure, GCP, AWS, or anywhere. You see that? You see that?
Yeah, understood.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
So because we are primarily focusing on AWS, we thought let's add that also. It is exactly nothing but your Jenkins only, just to tell you that how you have to use services like your Azure DevOps, how you have to integrate it. The focus, of course, will be all these are Jenkins based only. So we'll do two different things. We'll do Jenkins as well as AWS DevOps. Any other questions, guys? Did it make sense what I explained, or did it, or did
Yeah,
I
no, no, yeah,
confuse you?
it did make sense.
It
No,
did.
no, it did make sense for me actually. And also for the Docker and Kubernetes, will this be like an in-depth knowledge of a Docker and Kubernetes or just, on the surface?
No, 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 no. It will be a very decent discussion. As
Okay.
if you see the syllabus also for the Kubernetes and all that, whatever is required for you to do your deployments, all that will be covering. In fact, I come from that background only. I work day in day out on that. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
yeah.
So at the end, to make everything sense, are we doing any project kind of stuff or just learning every tool individually?
See, basically two things. If you see our syllabus, we gave one diagram of the project what we implement. So that we'll be doing it. Okay. With that you will get an idea, but at individual topic level also we'll try to do a lot of examples. Okay. The reason is that, of course, one is the whole big project you do, which is good. At individual level also you need to little bit know, how you can do it, which is very simple, by the way. These are all very simple. It's only okay. Regarding time I'll come. So we'll do it at individual level also. We'll try to do as many practicals as possible, and we'll integrate it in a project. Okay. Yeah, regarding time, see, the only thing is that, guys, I have to confess one thing. See, the syllabus that we have put is pretty extensive. The reason why it is a little bit extensive is that or to put it other way, the way we make this kind of syllabus is that we keep looking into the job opportunities. Okay? And of course, we know what is happening in the industry. So we'll try to put all those things whichever are required to crack a job and to work decently well once you join the job. So we put so much of content, right? I always, or at least we always start with an idea that okay, let's roughly put around 50 hours of time to get it done. And we think that okay, 50 hours means roughly let's put around 2 months time or 1.5 month to 2 months to finish the syllabus. But sometimes what happens is this 50 will become 60, 65, right? Because the idea is not just go ahead and finish off the syllabus and all that. Sometimes it does take time. So if anybody are planning to, in a scheduling mode of when they have to go to their interviews and other things, minimum 2 months you put it, guys. Okay, 2 months for sure. 1 week here and there it might happen, but 2 months you definitely need to work on this syllabus. Reason is that there are quite a few topics here which is very very simple to learn. It's just that you need to give a little bit time for for those concepts for you to digest and other things. Okay, so we cannot really rush and just do it off. Okay, 3 days this, 3 days this. That approach doesn't work. We need to follow a little bit of for instance, when you do Docker Kubernetes, we do it extremely slow. When you do Ansible, maybe a little bit fast. Like that, we structure it. But roughly take it around 50, okay, hours, and to be on safe side, take plus 10. Okay, so that you mentally you're ready. But it is a dead simple kind of a course. Anybody can learn. There is no programming stuff and other things. How to write a code is very simple. A standard way you have to write it down. It's just that you need to focus and make sure that you don't miss anything and follow the whole course.
Exactly. That's why I asked the question. So to get a big picture of what's going to happen, because see, like Just in your rough
No, project
diagram,
is
you
there,
mentioned.
Dipti.
Sorry.
If you see, no, if you see the syllabus, the very first page only we explain the project that we'll do. I don't know. I mean, if you have seen the syllabus, it is there.
Let me check.
Yeah, very first page itself, you'll see that.
So I have another question.
Yeah,
So will we be learning
go ahead, go ahead.
Linux, Docker, Kubernetes, Ansible, everything in the front first, and later it's AWS, or first AWS and then followed by these courses?
See, generally what I do is that, for a first week or so, I'll make everyone, create a setup like this. For instance, in the morning I was doing a class. I'll make everyone create a VMs on your desktop, and here I'll teach Linux and I'll teach Ansible. Okay. The reason is that I want everyone to get a feel of an on-prem kind of an environment. Tomorrow you work in a company and everything instead of cloud they are in on-prem. Then how do you work? Okay, that's the intention. Then the very first thing we do is we'll get into AWS. Okay, we once the AWS is done, then we'll get into your Docker and Kubernetes. So the idea is that before we go to your CI/CD or Kubernetes and other things, we'll finish your AWS. The reason is in Kubernetes also there is something called EKS. Okay, it's a managed service from AWS. To teach that, we need the AWS knowledge. So the initial, very second topic will be AWS. After Linux, Ansible, AWS, then Terraform, then we'll get into Docker Kubernetes, then into CI/CD stuff. Okay, making
So,
sense?
when it comes to AWS, w- are we gonna cover this, how this DevOps works
We
in the
have a
AWS
very good,
platform?
we have very decent kind of topics that we have put it in AWS. So you'll feel extremely comfortable after that working on AWS. See what happens in AWS DevOps is nothing but basically if you want to create your CI/CD kind of stuff, AWS also has some services like code pipeline and other things. So those things will cover it. Meaning that if the company is completely onto AWS, rather than again setting up Jenkins and managing it, you can directly do it with AWS services. So that is what we'll try to cover there.
Okay.
Dipti, did you see the project? So that
Yeah, I just saw vPro links
yeah. No,
assignment.
that is actually the name what we have given to that
Okay.
application. V profile.
Yeah, hello,
Yeah.
sir. Uh,
Yeah. Go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. What is the effect of recession on layoffs on the DevOps engineer rather than?
See, I don't, Venkat, if see, I don't know overseas what happening because I I do a session in the morning. Quite a few, or majority of them are from overseas, but they, they themselves are saying, "Oh, there are too many calls coming." In an Indian context, there is a huge demand always for DevOps. I don't know, man. This layoff and other things, leaving this top two, three tech kind of, or these major companies. I didn't hear much. I don't know. This probably I don't know if I'll be able to answer. Maybe if anybody can, guys feel free to answer this. But at least in Indian context, I didn't really hear about those things, till now at least. Everywhere I
Yeah,
see
anyone.
people asking, still asking, oh,
Yeah,
we need guys, right?
Hi, sir.
Yeah, Pratibha.
Sir, do we need a Python knowledge for the DevOps? Is it anything related DevOps with a Python? Also full
See,
stack.
two things.
Should
Full
we
stack,
learn?
no. No, no, no. Full stack has nothing to do with the. I mean, full stack is nothing, but the meaning is that front end and back end, right? That is more towards application. It has nothing to do with DevOps. See, little bit of Python. Why they ask for a DevOps is that when you are doing a task, and let's say you are doing it with Ansible, and if you come across some part of the task where you feel that you can do it easily with Python, then what people do is they'll start writing that particular part in Python, because Python also, in fact, Ansible and all these tools are Python based only. Okay? Instead of you writing, those tools will write it on your stuff. So, in a direct sense, you don't need any Python knowledge, but if you know a little bit of fundamentals of Python, it is good. Again, when I say Python, please don't try to learn Python to build your applications and other things. Okay, that is not required. If at all, little bit of Python is required for DevOps, all that Python is basically 4 to 5 things, like how do you use your variables, how do you put your conditions, how do you put your loops, and how do you do your file IO, and that very very fundamental thing. Uh, if required, is that is all that required. Okay, don't get into writing your APIs with Python, or trying to build a web apps with Python and all that. That is all not part of DevOps stuff. Did it make sense, Pratima? It is basically
Yes.
just in case,
eh,
kind of places. Yeah, they'll say, okay, you need to be comfortable a little bit with Python.
Yes, but basically, I heard 2 to 3 CV interviews. Do you have a knowledge about Python? If you are a DevOps developer, we also want both Python with a DevOps developer. Somebody
See,
required
yeah,
like that. That's why I
no,
asked
no,
this question.
yeah, no, no, it makes sense what you have. See, basically, probably little bit depends on the kind of company you're trying to, or rather spoke to the company. This, whoever have asked, I'm very sure they're probably kind of a small kind of a company, or a kind of a startup kind of stuff. Maybe they would have asked you, but in a literal sense, when you do your DevOps activities, Python knowledge at a very, very fundamental level should be sufficient. That is basically, as I told you, there, if at all you come across something which you will not be able to do it with Ansible, then you can use Python to do that fine touching at the end of the code. But leaving that extreme cases, in a general context, you don't need Python. I'll see, if at all, we have enough time, one session also, I'll only do it off on Python, or else, whatever is required for DevOps.
Hey, hi
It
Ravi,
will,
Bharadwaj
don't
here.
get into Python for developers, by the way. Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Hi Ravi. Yeah, so will there be any placement support for experienced professionals? Like
Uh,
in total, I'm having
see,
5 years of experience.
yeah.
So I just
See,
wanted to
one,
know,
that one, what,
will you provide
yeah, but
any projects and all so that I
no
can add that
project,
in my resume?
no project, as I was telling to Deepthi, that anyways, we'll do it as part of syllabus, right?
Yeah.
As far as assistance is there, once talk to the front office guys, okay?
Okay. So
So,
just asking that, will that be good to keep it in our resume so that we can
yeah,
answer
yeah,
all the
absolutely.
questions in the interview? Yeah.
See, one more thing, Bharadwaj, in a DevOps kind of, when you put your resume, you will not, like a developer, you will not tell that, I have built a e-commerce kind of a site, this, that, that is not the way how it happens. This
Okay.
project is basically just to get you a feel of end-to-end stuff. The way you will write down is, see, I have written using Terraform, I have written code to create a Kubernetes cluster. Using
Okay.
Ansible, I have written, code for deploying my applications. Like that, you will go. But for you to get a whole flow, we are putting that project. So you'll not say that this project I have, I have done. No need to be very specific about that project. Also, you can segregate it and write down the activities what you have done as a part of the project.
Okay. Good.
Okay? Like that. Yeah.
Thanks, Ravi.
All right.
Hi Ravi.
Yeah.
Is is there any system requirements to do practices on our side? Do we have to do any installations or while you're explaining the project, like
See
the
the
code?
yeah yeah yeah. See the way I do is that, if you're on I two places you will practice. The initial part of codes, you will do it right on your desktop, okay, or laptop. If you have 8 GB of RAM on that system, that is all we need. Okay. After first 20-25% of the codes, rest all will do it on cloud. So you actually don't need anything. It will be all on cloud. If you are on a Windows system and if you have a little bit of 8 GB of RAM is there, that should be more than enough for us. Nothing else. Rest all tools, whatever we do, all those are open source tools. So you will be able to download and practice.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. I
Yeah, what
think
are the timings? Oh,
what are the
yeah. What
see
are the timings of
generally
this session,
I,
sir?
this batch I think should be in morning 7 a.m. India time. But one time, I'll have the front office guys talk to you, okay,
Yeah,
regarding
everyone
time.
are the working professionals. So
Correct.
the
Correct.
office starts at 9 a.m. Sir. So it would be end at 8:15. It would be
Yeah, yeah.
very much
8 o'clock.
better.
8, 8, 8, 8.
Yeah.
Eight,
Okay.
generally, I'll just put 5-10 minutes here, the other side. But by 8, generally we close it off.
Yeah, that is also one of the concern. It's 12 o'clock for us here already.
Oh, night. You're in the east, so that is on the east coast side, right? Or
Yeah, yeah.
uh, yeah. Oh, I understand now. But yeah,
I mean, if it's
Uh, uh,
early, like 7 o'clock, we
no.
are
The,
okay.
the
But night,
problem. What happened? Problem. We can do it at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock also. The problem is generally the participants, we have from US, UK nowadays. We don't, time nowhere it matches because it is almost like 5 hours, ahead of. No, we are actually 5 hours ahead to them, so it doesn't match to them. So what we do is little bit of this batch. You will see the participants mainly from US, Canada, and of course India. So that 7 a.m. slot, I think, is good. But let's see if majority of them is there. We'll see if half an hour here and there we can do it. Let's see.
yeah. Thank you. Sure.
Yeah. Sure. All right, guys. I think it's. You feel free. You have anything? Please feel free to talk to the front office. All right. Yeah. Thank you all for attending, and you can always contact the front office. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Uh, Hi Ravi. I just got one question.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So can you just let me know the average team size in the classes that you normally deal with?
As I told you now, see, actually, I again started doing only from last 2 months. One batch that is going on, I think roughly put it around 20-25 guys, more than 20-25 people should be there. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. More than that, it is very, very difficult for us to really follow up also. That is a problem. We try to break them into different batches. If I do 100 at a time, I can, classroom still, I think little bit it's okay because at least, visually I can see the expressions, I can understand what is happening. Online, sometimes too many of this thing is there that individually, for me to get a sense of what happening is difficult. So, we either break it into 2-3 batches, but don't try to overload batch with too many people because it becomes extremely difficult to understand where what is happening. Right?
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys.